Hello and a warm welcome to today's Home Fun webinar. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name's Stuart Binney and I'm here in Madrid, Spain. And this is my colleague.
Hello, Stuart, and hello. Yes, this is Sarah Ellis, and I'm based in Italy. I'm actually in a place called Sesto Fiorentino near Florence. So welcome to everyone. Thank you very much for joining us.
Great. And
yep.
before we hand, sorry, Sarah. Before we hand over to Anne, Sarah and I are just going to spend a couple of minutes going through a bit of housekeeping. If you haven't attended these before, these Home Fun webinars have been pulled together with the help of Cambridge Assessment English, Cambridge University Press, and our guest speakers to aid you or to help you, those of you who are teaching primary age students or young learners and are presently teaching them from your home or remotely or however it's working in the place that you're in at the moment. The webinars we'll come back to in a moment. I'll just show you the series. Here you go. We've already had 2 of these so far. We're on number 3, as you can see there, and we've got a couple more coming up, which we'll talk to you about a bit later on. So while we're watching the webinar, just a couple of housekeeping notes. One suggestion is that if you have Skype, that you turn it off, because sometimes it interferes with the platform, and perhaps it's best to close any other programs you have opened as well to get full stability. However, if you do have problems with connectivity, you'll see at the top of your screen there's a refresh button, and if you press that, it'll take you out of the webinar and then bring you back in again and hopefully improve your connection if necessary. So hopefully you won't need to use that. As you see on the right of the screen, there's got the chat box. We'd like to invite you to write in the chat during the session, but also if you can tell us where you're watching us from today. It's very interesting for us to see who's with us, and it's a way for us to feel a bit closer to you in this different situation. Let's have a look. Ecuador, Mexico.
Great, fantastic.
India, Portugal.
And where in those countries would be also interesting if you say the town and the place, the country. That'd be lovely.
The Netherlands, Indonesia.
Great. Mexico, Iran. Wow, it's going really fast now. Poland, I saw Russia. To read really quickly.
I give up. I can't read that quickly. I give up.
Anyway, thank you very much for all of you joining us from different parts of the world.
Yeah, it's great.
Just very quickly, if you're looking for resources for young learners in particular, but about Cambridge English qualifications. So Cambridge English has a special website to help teachers at the moment called Supporting Every Teacher, as you can see. And if you click on that, it will take you to a world of resources and downloadable tools for teachers. We'll come back and talk about it a little bit more at the end, but there's the QR code if you want to access it quickly. Over to you, Stuart.
Yep, same for Cambridge University Press. Also under the Supporting Every Teacher headline, you'll find lots of other articles and resources wherever you are in the world. Just go to that page. As Sarah said, we'll come back and remind you of these a bit later. And the links to all of these will be on handouts today. The handouts we will be sharing with you towards the end of the webinar, so we provide all of those. We should talk certificates.
You should, in fact, yes. Very important part.
Yeah, you should have received certificates if you've come to our previous webinars. They should be with you already. Certificates for today, we hope, will go out tomorrow or the day after. So in a couple of days' time, they will be sent to your email. Okay, and
just to remind you that if you don't find it, it's a good idea to check in your spam. The ones for Monday and Tuesday were sent today as well. So if you haven't received them before, that's because they were sent today. But do check in the spam, because sometimes for some reason they end up in the spam.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we'll remind you of that at the end, or Sarah will, I'll forget.
Okay, no problem.
Right. Okay, so it's time now to begin the webinar. So Anne, I hope you're here. Yes, wonderful. So Anne,
And if I just quickly introduce you, Anne and I have worked together on various projects over the last few years. Anne Robinson is based in Santander in the north of Spain. So she's based in the same country as I am, same part of the world. Anne's written on several of our publications for Cambridge University Press, including the very popular Fun for Starters, Movers and Flyers series, if you are familiar with those. And also more recently written one of our exam booster books, which some of you may be aware have been made available for free downloads for those of you preparing students for Cambridge English qualifications. You can find links to those on the handouts later. And also more recently, and why we are here today, Anne's been involved in a new series called Fun Skills. And we will be sharing ideas, or Anne will be sharing ideas with you today, taken to a large extent from those materials. Is that right?
Yeah.
I think I've got that. Okay, so I'll leave you all to it. Sarah and I will turn our cameras off. Sarah's already gone. And I'll be back later with Sarah just to remind you of those resources. So have a good webinar. Bye-bye.
Hello and good afternoon from Spain, where I am, and thank you for joining us from all over the world. I've seen lots of different countries there, lots of different cities. I'll be giving a shout out to some of you later when we do one of the activities, okay? But welcome to everyone, wherever you are and whatever time it is in your part of the world. So let's get started. I'm going to start by showing you a piece of writing and just ask you to have a think about it and think about, do you like it as a teacher? Do you think it's a good piece of writing? Would you be happy if your students gave you this piece of writing? So, in my case, I would be very worried if my students gave me this piece of writing. And I would certainly know if I got this piece of writing that I had quite a lot of work to do, but I would also be confident that I could help them in a lot of ways. So that's that same piece of writing, but this time I've split it up into 3 blocks, 3 texts, because that's what it was, okay? We had a dear blank page, probably one of your students, not knowing where to start or thinking, I have nothing to write, I've got no ideas. You as a teacher, you're saying, relax, I'm sure you have lots of ideas. Let me help you find them and let me show you how to put them down on paper or on your screen if you're online. And me, what I'd like to do is to give you some ideas to build your confidence in teaching writing and your students' confidence in writing. Okay. So the first thing I want to mention and emphasize is when we're asking students to write, think about where we're going to get them to write. So perhaps in their course book, or you're giving them a writing activity, and then you say, take a piece of paper and write. And that can be not very inspiring or alarming even for some of our students. For example, if you look at this text here, and if you compare it to the little note I showed you before, there's too much blank space at the bottom of this. And so your student might think, oh, I need to write more. But perhaps we only ask them to write about 35 words, for example. So perhaps this is fine. But by putting it on that big piece of paper, it looks as though it's unfinished. So think about the canvas, on the paper, the page, or wherever that you're going to ask your students to write on. So now I'm going to ask you, have you got a blank page? Have you got a piece of paper that you can write on, draw on, whatever? Can you find one? I'm sure most of you can because you're teachers, and so you've probably got paper around you. And yeah, could you get a blank page? And can you see on the slide, I've put a hashtag there, hashtag fun writing skills. That's the hashtag for this webinar. And at the end of the webinar, or possibly later today or tomorrow even, I'd like you to take a photo of your page at the end of the webinar. Hopefully it won't be blank. And please share it with us. I've had some shares from this morning, Instagram and Facebook. I've seen some, I've been tagged and this hashtag has been used. And I've been seeing some great things that teachers have been noting, thinking, doing, getting inspiration. So what I'd like you to do is to share that with us using that hashtag after this webinar. And thank you in advance for doing it. Okay, so back to the blank page. If we're asking students to write, then tell them or show them even better how much we want them to write, how much space it should take up, the layout. You young learners, lots of young learners take perhaps longer to develop their writing skills than maybe their classmates or people of their same age. That's not a problem. We can hopefully get them, everybody, to be able to write well and to express their ideas. But for somebody who perhaps might have dyspraxia, and dyspraxia causes problems with writing. So if you give a student with dyspraxia a blank page, they've no idea where to start. So give them a box, give them lines. You can see that square on the right there. I've got a shorter line to start with because that's for my dear whatever. And then I've got lines there below it because that's where they're going to write their content, their message to me. So this can help young learners to know where to start, not to have that off-putting blank canvas or blank page. Think about that. And some reflections that I wanted to share with you as well at the start of the webinar. Think about what, if you're using a course book with young learners, what kinds of writing do course books generally use? So what kind of things are we asking our students to write? And think about this question. What will our young learners need to be able to write in the future? So things that I'm writing these days didn't exist when I was at school. Perhaps I'm showing my age here, but writing changes and will change in the future. So we need to expose them to a wide as possible range of different writing types and for them to know how to write them. So things we write. I'm going to show you some letters. I've chosen 4 letters. I'm going to start with W. So I don't know whether there's anybody here from Wales, from Warsaw. That is your letter. So with W, students write words. They might write a write-up of a restaurant or a hotel or a product that they've bought. And of course, nowadays, we all receive and write lots of messages using WhatsApp, or perhaps where you are, you use WeChats, okay? Also starts with W. So the way we write a write-up or a WhatsApp varies tremendously, the length, the kind of language that we use. So students need to know that, and we need, as teachers, we can help them notice the differences in the format, the length, the style. We're going to add S now because words turn into sentences, hopefully, as our students learn more English. So a lot of course books use stories. Stories with young learners are wonderful, very interesting, very stimulating. Summaries, this might be something that they might not do now, but perhaps in the future they could do it. But we'll be looking at maybe how we can summarize with hashtags in a minute later on in this webinar. That's a kind of summary. They might also write songs, signs, and I've seen some wonderful signs written for people around the world in hotels and restaurants, some very funny signs, and sometimes signs that you think, what's this person who wrote this? What are they trying to tell me to do or not to do? And possibly scripts, if they're going to perhaps write the scripts for videos or TV programs or their own vlogs, for example. We move on to T's now, okay? And I noticed in the chat box at the start, we had people here from Toronto and from Turkey. So these are the T texts. So obviously text, translation. Are any of you, a lot of teachers are also translators. So perhaps you're involved in writing translations. Tweets, okay? That was something, Twitter didn't exist until a few years ago. And again, there are rules for writing tweets. The rules have actually changed quite recently, and you can write more letters, more words in a tweet than you could a few years ago. And typograms, which I'll be showing you in a while, okay? So things we write. Now I'm going to ask you to think of things that we write and that our students might write now, or they might write in the future, starting with P, okay? And I'm going to show you this on a bigger frame there. So I've given you paragraphs as a starter. Can you think of 9 more things that we write that start with the letter P? Okay, yeah, postcards, poems, proposals, lots of poets, puns. Oh, I like that one. Posts, phrases. Right, we're zooming along here. Projects. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we've got lots of things, and you've got lots more probably than my 9 P's that I thought of. Okay, here are my 10 P's, including paragraphs. Okay, and as you can, as you might have seen, I don't know whether you noticed, I gave you a layout. I gave you a box to show that that last line was where it ended. I gave you some commas, and I gave you spaces to give you a clue as to maybe how long the words were. I gave you the second word in press releases to give you a clue there. So again, this is something we can do with our students. Give them visual clues as well as linguistic clues, like the letters P, and ask them to think of it. But give them some clues, give them some help. So on this slide, I brainstormed myself and also looked online for more ideas to think about all the different kinds of writing that we might do very often, or we might do just from time to time, or perhaps you've never done something. For example, I remember, and it's not actually on this slide, I remember the first time I had to write a reference for a teacher who wanted to move to another country. And I had to research the way to write a reference, a personal reference. How do you organize it? How do you, what do you include? What do you not include? Okay, so all of these different kinds of writing have their norms, their standards. You might choose deliberately not to follow it, perhaps, to go outside the box. But in general terms, our students need to know what the rules are. Okay. So talking about kinds of writing, I'm going to share an infographic here that I found on the teacher website in Australia in their newsletter. And this infographic shows the results of a survey that was carried out, in this case, 2014, And it was a survey of over 30,000 8 to 18-year-olds in the United Kingdom. So obviously in your countries, perhaps if you're teaching in other countries, it might be different. But this was for the UK. And they were asked, what do you write outside school at least once a month? And you can see by far the most popular answer, the most common answer was text messages. And then we also had lots of social networking messages, instant messages, emails, and you've seen taking notes, writing notes, and writing lyrics for song. Now, I've been back onto the National Literacy Trust's website, and the latest survey, which you can download the report if you're interested in finding out more, the latest survey, the figures are slightly different. So text has now gone up to 88%. Instant messaging has gone up to 78%. Stories, I was delighted to discover, have made a big comeback. And 8 to 18-year-olds, 44% of them are writing a story a month. Song lyrics, that's growing all the time, and that's going up to about 36%. And poems are also listed at 23%. So very interesting that these figures are moving, but you can see that the kinds of things that the students of these ages are writing outside class perhaps are not the typical kinds of writing that course books traditionally ask them to write. Okay, so that's what I'm going to focus on, some of these kinds of writing in the next few stages. So I'm going to start off with inspiring words. So if I were to give you that piece of paper with the word happy in the middle, what words might you add to that page? Happy family, husband, anniversary, days, enjoy, laughs. Okay, this is my happy page. These are things that I like, that make me feel happy. Are any of your words on my page? Okay, I'm going to show you another word, adventure. And if you can see, I haven't put adventure as a straight line, but adventure for me is exciting. Yeah, you discover things. So my adventure waves across the page. So for adventures for me involve exploring, perhaps the desert. I haven't really been to a desert. That's on my bucket list. If I went to the desert, I'd love to go on a camel ride. I haven't really been to a jungle either. I would like to do that. And a good idea if I went to the jungle would be to take my backpack. Okay, so you can give students these one words and they can write what it makes them think of or what they'd like to do. Then what they can do is they can share their pages with other students. If you're teaching online, obviously you can do this online, but you could do it offline and then students can hold up, this is the page that you've got on that slide. So students can do this offline and share their pictures using their cameras, or they can take a photo, yeah, and share it with their classmates if you're teaching online. Another thing, you don't have to use words, you could use a picture. And again, I've got my picture here, okay? So the balloon in that picture was in a magazine that I had, and I loved the balloon picture. I loved the colors. And also, balloon ride is another thing that's on my bucket list to do one day. So I did this. I cut out the balloon picture, and then I decorated it in my way. So I put smiley faces on the people. I've put a thought bubble or a speech bubble, and I've put my words that I think I associate with going on a balloon ride. I've put them there in the clouds around the balloon picture. Your students could do this perhaps with their course books. Yeah, they could put little post-its or little slips of paper or add to the pictures in their course books or in a magazine. And here are some of the inspiring words from the pre-A1 starters, A1 movers, and A2 flyers word lists. So you can take these words and use them and get them to write their associations, but obviously you're also, perhaps they can't remember what wish means, okay? So by doing this, we can really reinforce what's the meaning of wish. And then also what's their wish, because your wishes very probably won't be the same as my wishes. Okay, we're all different and we should celebrate that difference. This is an activity from the Fun Skills series, level 2, and students are shown 4 paintings. And in this case, they choose words from the box there, the adjectives, and they write the adjectives on the lines for their impression of these paintings. So they could do this, and then why not go further? Get them to write other words that they think about those paintings, or get them to find another painting and show it to their classmates and say, I really like this painting. Why? Do you like it too? Okay, so get them to share what they like and what they don't like, what they find perhaps scary and they wouldn't like to have on their wall. With the adjectives, I made, and again, I've got it here. I made this because you can't see it very well on the slide, in fact. So I chose some, I don't know whether you can see there in my camera, some very nice green metallic paper. I like this paper because I find it quite inspiring. And then I cut out some adjectives from magazines and things. So I found kind and I found fantastic. But some of the adjectives, I didn't find the whole word. So if you look in the middle there, you can see excellent or all right or okay. So in that case, I cut out individual letters and I built my adjectives to stick on my card. And that is really, it really reinforces, I should say, spelling. Okay, so you really got to think, oh, I've got an A and I've got an M and I've got an A. Oh, I need a Z for amazing. Okay, and I colored in, for example, beautiful, because that was black and white. And I thought, no, beautiful should have color. So I colored in the letters of that word. Okay, so you can personalize it. And I also organized it because at the top, I had words that you might feel lucky or feel brave or feel safe. Whereas at the bottom, something might be new or unusual or special for you. Okay. And also, just to mention here, I decided to put my page that way, but if I could have done it that way, but the way I organized my words would have changed because of the layout. So that's very important to think of as well. Do your students want it to be landscape or portrait? Okay. The canvas, okay, is what I'm calling it. So what size? Do we just need a small piece of paper? Perhaps we can fold a piece of paper in 2, or we can cut it, or we can tear it to make the right size of paper. And then I can think, oh, I'll do it that way, or I'll do it that way. Whatever is most appropriate. Typograms, I mentioned on that list of different text types that I showed you earlier on one of the slides. So on the link there's a link to my Pinterest collection of illustrated animal words. And I've got all the words on the Young Learners word lists from all 3 levels in that collection, but I didn't find a word, a typogram for beetle. So I made one. And I didn't find tortoise. So I designed it. Okay, so your students, if you show them some typograms and give them some ideas, then they can create their own typograms. And at the bottom, I'm going to show you this in Fun Skills in a minute. At the bottom, you can see I did a typogram for kiwis. And the reason I did this was when I was writing Fun Skills 3, I included an activity on kiwis and I wanted to use a typogram. So this is what I drew to send to Cambridge for them to send to the artist to ask for what I wanted on the page. And it appeared in an infographic. So it says read the poster, okay, because poster is on the Young Learners word lists, but in fact, this is an infographic. And an infographic combines visuals and text. So your students, and certainly your very visual learners, I'm a very visual learner, so I like visuals, I doodle. If you saw my notes, they'd probably have doodles all over them. So encourage that in your students to reinforce meaning. Again, it's really getting them to think of the meaning of these words. And that's the typogram that appeared in Fun Skills. Okay, and you can see that the texture of the kiwis is there. I was a bit disappointed because we haven't got like the variation with the center and the bit that gets greener around the center. But it's okay, it'll do, it does its job. And then we gave students some information about coconuts and mangoes, and we asked them to create an infographic about one of those fruits. But of course, your students might say, well, I don't want to do an infographic about coconuts or mangoes. Fine, choose another fruit. Choose another fruit that you know or that you like, your favorite fruit, and do it about that fruit or even a vegetable, okay? I'm very aware of time, and I just got through my content this morning. So normally I would ask you for ideas about what other things learners could make infographics about. And I've just seen one word which is very topical at the moment, rainbows, okay? Wouldn't that be a lovely subject right now to make an infographic about, yeah? A rainbow. They could find out, you know, how they're caused, how they're made, when they occur, the colors in them. Yeah, animals, jobs, places, school, okay, brilliant. Okay, we're going to continue making information visual, okay, and we're going to look at some mind maps. Okay, so before I show you that actually, mind maps I often use myself when I'm perhaps reading a text or reading some information and I'm thinking of how it's connected. We obviously also use mind maps for brainstorming information or ideas, and it's something which is very commonly used in business. I would imagine right now that people aren't physically together. Lots of people are on their computers in Zoom meetings or Skype meetings and talking about ideas and pulling them together. So we tend to do it very often to brainstorm ideas or information. But this mind map here, which comes from Fun Skills again. This one we use as a reading comprehension tool. So students look at this poster about Adam's family, and then they complete this mind map about the information. Okay, so where his family live, people in his family, and things that they do at the weekend. Okay. And what do we do next? We ask them to write 3 sentences about their family, and also to draw pictures or to find a photo of their family or to find photos of their family. And they make a poster using their information. And one thing I would really recommend is using this when you're doing writing with students, have a little checklist. So this character here, he's called the checklist buddy. And our checklist buddy comes in at the end of a writing activity and says, stop, let's check. So student looks at what they've written. Have I written 3 sentences? Tick. Have I used capital letters? Tick. Oh, there's a full stop missing at the end of my writing. Oh, I'll go back and I'll put in that full stop. So a little checklist will hopefully help your students show you or share with you or send you writing. And in this case, it would have 3 sentences. They'll have used capital letters and full stops at the end of their sentences. And then students have written their 3 sentences. They've created their posters, their infographics, they could also be, and then they complete their mind map about their family. And I haven't actually got the physical sheet here, but I can tell you that this is a full A4 size sheet of paper. So they've got quite a lot of room to complete their mind map. And why not, in these spaces in the middle between those lozenges, why not get them to decorate their mind map further? Perhaps they can add more words. My dad is really fit, or my dad is really tall. Okay, perhaps they didn't write that information in their sentences, but they could personalize their mind map and add those little bits of information to make it more theirs. So again, you were very quick with your ideas for the infographics. So what other things could students make mind maps about, apart from their family? What else could they do? Games, yes, sorry. Hobbies, an art project, wonderful. Story, oh, now the chat box is being set on fire here. Clothes, yeah, I hope you'll be being able to read them as they fly past. Wonderful ideas, okay. Okay, so let's look at another kind of writing that I listed on the list, and that some of you, I believe, typed into the chat box when we were looking at the letter P. So perhaps in Peru, you need a profile for your social media. Your students might have to do this in the future, so we can get them to think about what you include in a profile and how you organize it. So let's look at this. So this activity to create a profile comes from level 5 of Fun Skills, and we start off with a listening. And I should mention, because in the handouts you're going to get these images from this particular activity, if you look at the top there, after the number 1, you can see a circle with a number in it. So this audio is track 4 from level 5 of Fun Skills, and you can get those audios from the Cambridge University Press website. Okay, so they listen to the information about these 4 people, and they write words, in this case adjectives, on the lines underneath of the photographs. Okay, and there's a clue here. These people aren't going to come in the same order as the numbers or as the photos, but I can tell you we're going to hear about the boy who has the word friendly under him, because he's the example. Okay, that's a very visual clue that's where you're going to start. So the first person we hear about is Rob, and Rob is 11, and he's very friendly, and his positive thing about himself is that people think he's funny, and maybe the but I'm lazy, okay, which would be the not smiling face. Okay, his dad thinks he's lazy. Okay, so for Rob, the students would write friendly, funny, lazy. Okay, and they do that for all of the other 3 people as well. And next, we give them 2 profiles of 2 of the people that we saw their pictures from. 4, sorry, and they have to decide which of those 2 people these profiles are for. And because of time here, I'm just going to tell you that the top one, I'm still at school, but I want to be an actor, that is Rob. And we know because he's funny and lazy. Okay, we've got those 2 words that we heard in the listening, and so this tells us that this is Rob's profile, and we've got an example of a profile. Then we have another person's profile, okay, which again they match to one of those 4 photos. Then we look at some tips for writing a social media profile, and we are told that they should be short, less than 50 words. They should tell us lots of different things: what we like, what you're good at, what you want to do. It is okay to say something that you're bad at, but you shouldn't keep saying I can't do this, and I don't do this, and I don't like this, and I don't do this. Okay, that would be too negative. So with this advice, they read the 2 profiles again and say which one is better and why. And in this case, Rob's profile is much better because we've got variety of information, variety of activities, and the language too. The second profile, it's quite negative, not very positive about this person, and also lots of repetition. So not really following those rules to write a profile. What do you think students do next? They write a profile. Okay, so again, we go back to the advice. First of all, and we're doing it in steps, which is very important with writing activities, break it down into steps. Think of 3 words that describe you. And probably we would say, think of maybe 2 positive and 1 not so positive word to describe you. Think of 2 or 3 other things that you want to tell people. And you can see it says use the song. There is a song with lots and lots of questions about the students that they would give them ideas, some of them quite unusual. And then they would complete the tables. And again, going back to what I said at the beginning, you can see we've got the space for the photo, the space for the name, the space for the summary. And then we've got space for them to write this text. We're not just giving them a blank page. Okay. Okay, related again to social media. And we're going to look at the rules or the advice for creating a hashtag. Okay, so I'm going to give you time and just read through the main points. So hashtags are very often just one word, or they're two or more words which have been put together. You can use numbers, but there must be at least one letter, and very important, no spaces. And the best number of hashtags for an Instagram post is between 5 and 10. So not just one, but more. On the next slide, I've actually got a mistake, okay, which I'll point out now, okay, but I created a hashtag for this webinar, and it's hashtag fun writing skills. So I've created a checklist which actually has a mistake. So a hashtag should have one word or two, more than one word, but together, at least one letter in it, no spaces, and that's actually wrong. It doesn't have a limit to how many letters it should have. So which of these hashtags on the screen is not a good hashtag? It doesn't work, and why? Which of the hashtags here? Yeah, it's the pictures one, okay. What's wrong with the pictures in the SB hashtag? It's got spaces between the words. And also, maybe the SB, because perhaps that's not transparent enough for people to be able to remember it or to find it, okay, which is what we need to do with hashtags. Okay, so get your students to write hashtags, and I've deliberately used these hashtags because they are things that I think you could get your students to use, okay? So they could, in their students book or in the material you're using online, get them to write a hashtag for the text. What's it about? Is there a story? Get them to write a hashtag about their feelings today or in a lesson, or about the content, the text, an exam, if they're coming up to that, okay? They can write a hashtag with that, okay? So they can create their own hashtags, but we've explained the rules, and we've got a little checklist for them to check that their hashtag works, okay? So I'm a firm believer in reusing material. So I've gone back to my balloon ride picture that I showed you earlier, and I've added 6 suggestions for reusing that balloon ride picture. So you could write, draw a typogram for the word balloon. I had a teacher this morning who shared her page at the end of the webinar, and she had drawn a lovely balloon typogram. So if you've got an idea for that, you could add that to your page. We could ask students to write 5 hashtags, remember no spaces, for this picture. Perhaps you could add those to your page. They could write a message to a friend. So they imagine that they're in the balloon and they're writing a message, perhaps a WhatsApp or a WeChat message, to their friend. Perhaps your students online could write messages, a conversation, a dialogue to each other about this balloon ride, if they're in the balloon. They could write a profile, a social profile for one of the people in the balloon. They could write an infographic about hot air balloons, find out about them. And another thing which has grown in popularity, very interesting, about 38% of students in the UK said that they were writing diaries. So about 38% of those children that said that they did write outside school were writing diaries. And I think right now under lockdown, a lot of people are perhaps writing diaries, and it's something which has been suggested so that we can share this maybe in the future with future generations, because hopefully it'll never happen again. And a couple of reflections that I wanted to share with you again. I shared one at the beginning, some reflections there. If you're teaching online these days, I wonder how much pen and paper writing your students are doing. Yeah, because if we move totally online, then the hands-on, artistic, creative, pen or pencil in hand, doodling, drawing, making notes, perhaps we're going to lose that. And not just that, but what worries me is that your students, perhaps your 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds, who perhaps are taking longer to develop their writing, perhaps they're going to lose the practice that they need to develop their writing skills. It's very, very important. So try and include it in your online classes, or get your students to write outside your online class and to show it like I did. Okay, remember these things that I showed you. Your students can do that too. Yeah, we very often in our young learners classes, perhaps we'll get them to lie on the floor or sit on the floor. And that shouldn't disappear now if you're teaching online. And perhaps your students can't connect. There are some teachers who are teaching and are sending messages perhaps to their students so that they can still continue doing things with their English. And again, that's great to encourage them to do that real hands-on writing. And also to mention, because it is a fact, that if you are if your students are using more the keyboard perhaps than a pen or a pencil or crayons, they're quite likely to make typing mistakes. You might find that they make fewer typical spelling mistakes, and this has been statistically shown in a comparison of B1 preliminary paper-based and computer-based exams, that sometimes those typical annoying mistakes that we see, like which, they disappear when students are typing, but they start making typing mistakes. So for example, when I'm coming to type, I should say, the word Cambridge, I am very aware of my fingers suddenly, because I make a lot of typing mistakes. I tend to get the D and the G in the wrong order, and I make that typing mistake. So please make sure you continue with that. And finally, I wanted to share this with you. So when I was preparing this webinar, I had so many ideas that I wanted to share. I'm getting no sound, is that correct? Right. Hello, can you hear me? Stuart, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Okay. Perhaps it's just an individual teacher then. Thank goodness. I thought I'd disappeared. Okay, thank you. So to round up the webinar, I wanted to share this with you, which you're going to get now as a file. I've created a writing calendar. So I've created 28 days of writing activities for you. And I'm just going to show how the writing calendar works. So we're zooming in here on one area of the calendar. And you can see that for day 1, the words in my sentences and question there are underlined, and that's because they're hyperlinked. So if I click on that link there, that will take me, in this case, to the world of better learning. And in this case, it'll take you to a blog article that I wrote there after a webinar like this one. And you can find more information and more ideas about writing words or sentences in different colors with different materials. For day 2, you can see there, I hope, there's no underlining, and that's because there's no hyperlink, because I thought that it was pretty obvious what I meant. Writing signs for English for doors and cupboards in your home, I didn't feel as though you needed an explanation. Likewise for day 3. And there are 1 or 2, for example, number 15, I'll just read it out because you might not be able to read it. Write some hashtags for some photos or texts. Right now, I don't have the hyperlink, but after this webinar, I'll be writing another article, another blog post for the world of better learning, and I will have a blog post giving more explanation on that and giving you those rules for writing hashtags. Okay, so at the moment there's no hyperlink on number 15, on day 15, but there will be when I write the blog post, because I'll update this document and we'll share it again. Oh. Okay, so have you got your no longer blank page? I hope it's no longer blank. Because if you have it, could you please share it on social media? I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter. And if you can use the hashtag fun writing skills, then hopefully we'll be able to see each other's ideas and inspiration and get more inspiration. So please, I'd love to see your hopefully no longer blank pages. Yeah, fun writing skills is the hashtag for this. Yeah, and Stuart and Sarah, are you going to come back on?
Certainly are. Hello.
Yes, here we are.
Great, Anne. Thank you as always. That was really insightful, really interesting, fun. Love the typogram ideas. Love the writing calendar. We've already spoken about that. Those of you who are still with us, and there's many of you, we will be sharing the writing calendar and the handouts with you now. And you should see that come up at the bottom of your screen underneath the chat box somewhere. Yep. So click on those and download them now. The writing calendar has interactive links on there, so you should be able to click through to each idea for every day where it has URLs. Fun skills. As I said at the beginning, Anne is one of the writers on our new series of books for younger learners of English, for primary learners of English. And these books prepare students for the Cambridge Pre-A1 Starters, A1 Movers and A2 Flyers exams. Links to more information about fun skills are on your handouts that you should have clicked on in the bottom of your screen by now. The booklets that accompany fun skills, the home booklets, which are designed to be used between the classroom and home with the parents, for example, are now available free for download at 3 levels, levels 2, 4 and 6. And those handouts have just been shared by Paula in the comments box, and they are also on your handouts. So lots of more free stuff for you there. Okay.
Okay. Do you want to move us? So just quickly, and for those of you who were not here at the beginning, if you go to Cambridge Assessment English, you'll find this special section supporting every teacher on the website, where you can download resources for teachers, and you can also find out about the Cambridge English test for young learners. So that's A1, pre-A1 starters, A1 movers and A2 flyers. So if you'd like to find out more about that there, I won't say any more, but you've got lots of things to explore there. And over to you, Stuart, I did have this example of the interactive PDF, and this is where you can find those resources I was telling you about. And if you click onto the next page after this one, you'll find a special one dedicated to young primary learners as well, and for teachers, with all those resources, flashcards, etc., posters, lots and lots of things.
Great. And as we said at the beginning, Cambridge University Press is also supporting Every Teacher alongside our colleagues at Cambridge Assessment English. So plenty more articles, blog posts, downloads, webinar recordings for you to see here. And that includes what I mentioned just a minute ago, the Fun Skills Home booklet that you can see at the bottom there. For 3 of the levels, those are available, and the links are in your handouts. Don't forget as well, some of you will already be familiar with World of Fun. World of Fun is our website dedicated to teachers who are preparing children for young learner exams. There's loads of stuff on there, and as an example, we've just put up some new posters which can be used online digitally with your kids practicing words and tasks from the young learner exams. So plenty of stuff there as well. And just to remind you that the next webinar will be on
Monday,
the 11th of May. That's 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. Central European time. Today, this one now is, of course, was at 3 p.m. Central European time.
It's worth noting, sorry to interrupt, Stuart, that it's on Monday and Tuesday next week. So we've got the last 2 on Monday and Tuesday. So that's probably just worth noticing now.
Yeah, and Tuesday's the sort of bumper edition because we got both Anne and Jane presenting together. So there you go. You don't want to miss that one. You don't want to miss Monday either. So just a quick word, I think, before we go. I know a few of you have told us you've attended the previous emails, so perhaps last Monday or last Wednesday, and you haven't yet received certificates. We've sent the certificates out this afternoon for those first 2 webinars, and the certificates for today's webinars will be sent out tomorrow. If you have any problems, you can contact us at ELT webinars at cambridge.org. Jenny's just pasted that into the comments.
Yes, and it's worth noticing that sometimes they go into the spam, so have a look at your spam just to check it hasn't just disappeared there.
Exactly. Most, we get the list of emails and the computer magic happens and everybody gets sent a certificate. So if you haven't received it, check your spam folder first. There might be a glitch in the system. We might have to resend a couple of them, but you should be receiving them.
And just something, Stuart, people are saying about how can they see the webinars that perhaps they haven't seen, they couldn't attend. There'll be a recording soon, yeah?
Yeah, these are automatically recorded. And as I understand, those of you who've attended today will get an email sent automatically with the replay details. But we will also be promoting these webinars on our World of Better Learning blog, which is linked to in your handouts. We'll be probably in the next week or so, we'll start putting up information about each webinar, including the handouts that you've seen and including a recording of the webinars. So you'll see them again. Just be patient and they come back round again. The recordings will come, excuse me. Okay.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for joining us. See you soon.